It wasn't simply to be land, it was to be a kingdom. $500,000 worth of dirt and rocks beneath the San Francisco peaks, with the weight of a dream. It wasn't dirt and rocks to the Browns. It was destiny. A final haven after all those years of wandering, where 4 houses would stand together, one family, at last home. They sold us a dream on television of rainbow flags, painted smiles, and harmony. But strip away the glossy facade and another story starts to emerge, one not authored in flags and vows but in legal papers, deeds, and liens. Behind the dream was a meticulously crafted paper trail, a carefully spun web of financial deals cloaked in plain sight. And that is where the truth is. This has nothing whatsoever to do with feelings, relationships, or who was right and wrong. The one witness that never lies is the record, the paper trail. Welcome to the Sister Wives Real News investigation of Coyote Pass, liens, deeds, and the untold financial game. Remember that signature scene from the show, Cody Brown out on the property, map in hand, promising each wife her share in the future. Mary on lot 1, Janelle on lot 2, Christine on lot 3, Robyn on lot 4, and a shared space to represent their togetherness. It seemed official, irrefutable, like the master plan for their lives. But was that map real, or a prop for millions to see? Erase the twist, the map is not colored paper. It's the black and white terrain of county records. Deeds. Titles. Loan documents. And if you follow those lines instead of Cody's behavior, the illusion of communal utopia disappears. What is exposed instead is something more cynical, a blueprint exercise for economic control, locked into 2 names. If you're looking for what actually occurred at Coyote Pass, the bit the segment producers didn't make it to, you're in the right place. We're going to fill in the blanks that everybody else dances around. Subscribe and the bell icon, because this investigation has only just begun. And trust me, you won't be wanting to miss part 2. So let's pull on the first strand, how it began as a dream, and how it started to unravel. Back in June 2018, the Browns bought what ended up being Coyote Pass. But erase what people don't know, they didn't purchase a single large parcel. They purchased multiple parcels, divided in 2 transactions, one for just under 10 acres, the other for roughly 5. That is an important fact. Property ownership is something that has significance. It begets rights, ownership, and liability for debt. On the original deeds, all 5 names were included: Cody, Janelle, Christine, Mary, and Robyn. Leased on paper, there was a dead heat. Each wife had an interest. Each wife was an owner. And each one of them had liability. At this point, the dream appeared firm, maybe even fair. But erase what our sources tell us, even in the beginning, the finances were dubious. On the surface, the show preached a message of joy and unity. Behind the scenes, it was chaos. Lenders were very hesitant to finance such an unsavory polygamous arrangement, several houses, tenuous income sources. Obtaining those loans was described to us as a miracle held together with duct tape. That shaky financial ground sowed the seeds of what was to come. When cash did tighten, legal loopholes flexed. Too much. And soon after that, that accommodation was exploited. What had been 4 houses began to fragment before the first survey stake was driven into the ground. The Browns hadn't purchased land, they'd mortgaged their soul. And the battle over how to repay that loan would set the stage for the betrayal that was to come. Which brings us to the second watershed, the written record. Every conveyance of property leaves behind a permanent record, titles, deeds, liens, of the real narrative of ownership. And the first great breakthrough arrived in the form of a quitclaim deed. For the uninitiated, a quitclaim deed is the fastest way of removing a name from the title of a property. Christine Brown did that in August of 2020, giving up her interest in a central parcel of Coyote Pass. On the program, they made it out to be simple logistics. Christine required her own mortgage in Flagstaff, and banks would not approve her because she was still tied to the extremely mortgaged family home. On the surface, it appeared harmless, a simple signature so that everyone could move forward. However, if you place this within the overall context, it has been spun completely differently. This was not mere red tape. This was the first crack in the foundation. That quitclaim was the first domino. Signing, Christine began to erode the legal fiction of joint ownership, if anyone conveyed that or not. On paper she gave up enforceable rights to that property. She may have been reassured by promises, religious commitments, or family-level commitments that it's still your land, but promises carry very little currency in county records, or even less so with lenders. Legally, and to the institution holding the foreclosure hammer, Christine was no longer a co-owner. And that alteration, subtle as it seemed, is where our hypothesis starts to come into sharp focus. Was this a typical mortgage skirting, or an experiment in how quietly a stake could be pulled from the entirety with little outcry? Look to the other. The solution offered to Christine wasn't creative title juggling for the sake of keeping her name, it was erasure. That one signature solved a short-term problem and quietly set the stage for an expansion of control. From that day forward, family settlements were voluntary and unofficial, words stacked up against the power of legal documents. Pause and grasp what that truly means. You still possess a legal right, but the vehicles that contain the keys to your properties tomorrow are in someone else's control now. The next move in the game of chess was no covert one, it was earth-shaking. If the quitclaim was a shudder, the second filing was an earthquake, a home equity line of credit on Coyote Pass property. A HELOC is an uncomplicated financial product when used in the open, cash for repairs, school, debt consolidation. But the essential question on any loan is always the same: who signed? Who owes? In late 2020, public records reveal a HELOC taken against Coyote Pass, and the borrowers named were simply Robyn Brown and Cody Brown. Let that sink in. Cody and Robyn legally encumbered the whole property as collateral while other family members helped keep it on title. From the bank's perspective, the signatories of that big loan are the individuals to deal with, to collect from, and, worst case, to foreclose against. The HELOC basically turned Janelle and Mary into passive title holders and active co-owners who were turned into passive co-owners burdened with debt they hadn't committed to and didn't sign for. You still have a percentage of ownership, but two partners borrowed money significant enough to change the destiny of the asset, and did not even get your signature. It's the economic version of inheriting a quarter of a business only to discover two others just borrowed enough to ruin the entire enterprise. This, to us, is shaping up as a bloodless coup, no sensational boardroom takeover, but a transfer of leverage achieved in the world of paper. Titles are legal matters, loans dictate leverage. They jointly reshaped who really had power at Coyote Pass, and they did it off camera and off the record. If you thought on-screen bickering over lot placement and cistern placement during the course of the show was important, re-decode that memory now. They were battling over the appearance of homes on property legally out of their control. This is where timing becomes theatrically perverse. From 2020 to 2022 the programs we watched were filled with planning speak, well build soon, well put the house here, and the like, catchphrases that promised momentum. Those camera angles choreographed a vision of progress. But the documentary record tells another tale. While relatives discussed parcels and utilities, core legal processes were consolidating financial control in the hands of two individuals. The disparity between what we were informed of and what the records reveal is nothing short of staggering, and certainly no less than sinister. Was this, therefore, incompetence, a bewildered family with respect to complex real estate law, or a conspiracy on the part of one or two members to take control of the family's most significant asset? We can't prove motive from the public record conclusively, but we can follow the effect. One signature removed, one enormous loan added, and an influence dynamic changed from diffuse to concentrated. Add to this the testimony we've heard from insiders who paint for us a picture of crisis management and sign now or lose everything threats, and the pattern looks, at least, suspicious. Individuals sign under duress. Humans sign to avoid short-term panic. But those same instant signatures offer the best disguise for long-term reshaping too. If production and off-camera decision-making were ever a black box, as one source described it, then the wives were regularly asked to sign without full knowledge of the financial narrative. You have to sign this is a good stick when knowledge is scarce. At risk of immediate loss, legal counsel is overridden and rapid signing the path of least resistance. That's the ideal environment for out-of-the-ordinary documents to be pushed through, and for long-term reforms to be accepted as temporary measures. What does this amount to? A paper trail that, step by step, shifts power and masks accountability. Title, quitclaim deed, loan agreement, that's the physical documentation of ownership, and they don't care about spiritual contracts or personal promises. Sequence can provide a map and a vision. The county recorder's office and lending agreements tell us who actually has the keys. If you follow the filings instead of the film, the story is backward. A united family project becomes, in legal reality, an asset increasingly steered by a smaller subgroup. Stay with me, because the next layer peels back even further. There are additional filings and timeline gaps that raise practical questions about notice, consent, and equitable treatment. We'll lay those documents out one by one, dates, grantors, grantees, and loan amounts. We'll walk you through the timeline so that you can decide for yourself whether this was a trail of unhappy inevitabilities or a consolidation by design under the cover of crisis management. Part 2 will walk you through those postings and the implications they have for any creditor action, subdivision proposals, and the wives' remaining legal recourse. If you want to know what really happened behind the fake smiles and the ridiculous close-ups, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on, because the receipts are coming. We'll translate legalese into English, provide you with the real filings, and go step by step through how each one eroded Coyote Pass authority. Whether you watched for reality TV drama or forensic accounting, this is where the story gets personal, awkward, and necessary. For now, remember this: reality television edits scenes, producers craft arcs, and families tell versions of themselves. But public records do not edit, they exist, date stamp, and bind. That's why the paper trail matters more than any confession or tearful aside. In Part 2, we'll lay those unflinching records on the table. You'll notice the papers that passed from hand to hand, and you can gauge how much was coincidence and how much seems to be design. What if, in trying to save the family, you were merely transferring your power within it? On screen, we discovered unity, shared futures, and 4 homes being constructed at Coyote Pass. But the deeds and liens don't agree, a story of consolidation and behind-the-scenes changing of hands. And where word and deed part ways, the dogged investigator follows the actions. Always. Paper doesn't lie. So let's put this story to test in the worst possible setting, a courtroom. Picture the family partnership irrevocably dissolved. Lawsuits are flying over who owns Coyote Pass. In court, the fireworks ensue, tears, memories, vows, all vomited up for the judge. But once the dust settles, it won't be passion that decides. It won't be the title map Cody waved around on TV. The star witness would be a title officer. A dispassionate expert who has examined the entire chain of title. Theirs is simple, factual, and devastating testimony. Now imagine Janelle's lawyer standing up to present their case. The officer goes over what's on record. Then Cody and Robyn's lawyer stands up, asking one critical question: who signed the latest loan? In that moment, all the rest falls apart. All the possibility all those years of 4 homes is destroyed. The court, as does the bank, only care about deeds, liens, and signatures. And the signatures tell us exactly who is in charge. Erase the reality, Janelle and Mary would be trapped. Sure, they do have a legal interest in the property, what is called an equitable interest. However, with Cody and Robyn owning the debt, that interest is precarious. To sell out, Janelle or Mary would need to sue for what is called a partition action, a forced sale through court. That takes an eternity, is nasty, and is extremely, extremely expensive. Meanwhile, Robyn and Cody just couldn't keep writing the HELOC check and getting their way forever. Paper trail gave them carte blanche, a legal stranglehold pretending to be a family dream. And that's where betrayal is built. Not in the signing of documents, but in the hypocrisy that came before it. Smiling, making promises of cooperation, and behind the scenes completing forms that shifted the balance of power. This betrayal didn't come in a floor fight or a headline stunt. It came beneath the surface, with pen scratching in an office that had never before been photographed. But let's fight back against narrative. Is all this just financial insanity? Maybe Cody and Robyn didn't understand the ramifications. Perhaps they happily staggered through the process. But does that really pass the sniff test? This family had already worked through complicated real estate in Las Vegas and Utah. They weren't title, loan, and property division virgins. And Cody himself liked playing the part of the CEO of the family. To think it was simple ignorance is to possess a level of naivety their record does not merit. Which leads us to an even darker situation, a theory proffered by sources claiming to have information from within. Coyote Pass, the rumor goes, was never envisioned as a family compound. Let that settle in. The intention was never to build 4 houses, period. It was bought as a long-term investment property. The 4 homes dream? That was a story, a wife pacifier which became increasingly frustrated with the Flagstaff move, and a nice TV footnote. Think about it, 4 homes on subdivided lots would have been millions and headaches galore. But to hold the land intact, slowly consolidating it in fewer hands, and present it as one neat, unbroken parcel? That's a developer's dream realized. Something that might one day be resold for millions, without any of the messy emotional baggage of family ownership. Think of it as a REIT to get a clearer picture. Step by step, the plan unfolds. Christina's quitclaim. The HELOC signed by Cody and Robyn alone. Each step eliminating the other's legal standing while keeping them appeased with promises of someday soon. A silent game of chess, where every signature a strategic move toward a final result, a large payday for the final 2 remaining. And if that's true, then those weepy arguments we witnessed on those wooden logs weren't actually about trees or cisterns. They were drama. The wives were pawns on a board they didn't even know they were on, while the game was really being played at the county recorder's office. So here is the question, what next? What evidence is surfacing now, behind NDAs and backroom quiet? And what do our sources say is happening now? That's where part 2 takes it. Well, chronicle the documents to sale prep, investigate the so-called quiet lien theory, and map out 3 dynamite legal paths a judge might order for the final Coyote Pass destiny. Subscribe to Sister Wives Real News, enable notifications, and don't miss what's coming next. Because the greatest bombshells haven't fallen yet, they're falling today. And after you've viewed the paper trail, you'll know the tale isn't one of 4 houses on a hill. It's one of how millions are amassed, one sneaky signature at a time. Builders don't pay top dollar for problems. They're buying convenience. The fewer that accompany a property in the way of signatures, contests, and disputes, the more attractive the offer. And if you look at what the Browns did here, the plan is painfully clear. These weren't random family budget choices. They're exact copies of items on a developer's pre-sale checklist. First, consolidate ownership. Christina's name is removed from the deed in a quitclaim. One less voice with a voice of law, one less signature at a closing table. Check. Then refinance the debt. Those original mortgages had the entire family hostage. But Cody and Robyn's HELOC wasn't simply adding debt, it transformed. The family burden was a single lien in the name of only 2 people. From a developer's point of view, that's much cleaner. Now, instead of negotiating with 5 co-owners, you're negotiating with Cody and Robyn. Check. And the subtle claim, the secret complexity of it all. In helping to provide the down payment, Janelle, Mary, and Christine created what is called an equitable interest. Although their names subsequently disappeared from title, their contribution cast a shadow claim. These quiet liens are not recorded in the county, but they will bite a future sale down the road since the women can sue for payment. For any buyer, that's a worst-case nightmare risk. So how do you avoid taking this risk? Not by negotiating on a level playing field. The sneakier, and colder, method is usually to contract first for all legal and financial control. And then, with title and debt in your possession, you make calls at settlement. Imagine the tenor of that negotiation, not let's figure this out together, but we've got the deed and the loan. take the buyout we're offering on your initial investment, or well drag this into court for years. It's nasty, but it's effective. The quitclaim, the HELOC, they weren't just documents. They were instruments of control. Another bar on the cage, making partners powerless claimants. Short of actually clearing the land for development, that is. They were cleaning it up, stripping away complexity, and getting it ready to be sold whole. And here's where rumors begin to stand up to documents. Our team moved quietly to establish contact with Flagstaff's development community. No one would go on the record, but one commercial real estate consultant, let's call him John, provided us with a view that chilled our blood. John characterized the Browns' plan as amateurishly chaotic for a developer yet bizarrely sophisticated for a family. In front of cameras, they offered 4 houses with shared utilities on rough ground, a permitting nightmare. Any halfway decent developer would laugh, John told us. But on paper? They played it textbook. If a client wished to push out partners and ready the property for a clean sale, the first advice would be, consolidate titles, centralize debt. That's exactly what Robyn and Cody did. Too precise to be coincidence. And then there was this bombshell from John. As early as 2021, long before Christine officially withdrew, the development community was already having back-channel, behind-the-scenes conversations about the possible value of Coyote Pass as one, intact piece. Not listings, but anecdotal feelers, the kinds of quiet test probes developers utilize to gauge appetite. And the appetite was massive. A large, untouched chunk of property with highway frontage near a booming city like Flagstaff? A goldmine. Subdivide it, commercialize it, luxury getaway, the possibilities are endless. And the sum tossed around? Not the $500,000 they dreamed about. Not even $1 to $2 million. John stated the figure that had been whispered could be life-changing. If that's the case, this is the puzzle piece missing. What it is that while Cody was on camera drawing fictional lot lines for his wives, actual play may already have been underway, promoting the land as a single, solo, high-end commodity. Public narrative was expanding. Private truth may have been going for millions. Which leads us to the inevitable conclusion, 3 chilly options ahead. In every property dispute like this one, courts don't have unlimited options. As per the paper trail, Coyote Pass has 3 directions to go, and none of them lead to compound dream the show peddled to us. Path 1 is consolidation, where Cody and Robyn's control of the debt gives them effective control of the land. The others would be reduced to demanding repayment for their contributions, not co-ownership. On paper, Cody and Robyn win, but it's a hollow, bitter victory carved from years of manipulation. Paths 2 and 3, well, those are even more explosive, and we'll break them down in part 2. Because here's the thing, the greatest shocks have yet to be revealed. The paper trail doesn't just show us the past, it points directly to the possible future. And if the rumor mill is correct, the Brown series finale isn't in production, it's profitable. Subscribe now, ring the bell, and don't miss what's coming. In part 2, we'll expose the remaining documents, the settlement strategies, and the 3 potential legal outcomes that could either bury Coyote Pass in lawsuits, or turn it into a multi-million-dollar payday. On paper, it might look like Cody and Robyn walked away with a total victory. If a judge awarded them full ownership of Coyote Pass, they'd appear to be the rulers of the entire property. And the catch is this, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. A victory so costly it's almost equal to a defeat. Why? Because the judge would not only give them the land. They'd make Cody and Robyn buy out the equitable interests of the other wives. That is, paying Janelle, Christine, and Mary back their original down payment investments, with interest or inflation tacked on. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. And where would that cash come from? Most likely another massive loan against the land, burying them in even deeper debt. They'd be left sitting on a sprawling property that looked impressive on the outside, but came shackled to a crushing mortgage they could never escape. A kingdom, yes, but one that feels more like a financial prison. Now add a second freeway, the horror of partition. Even if one of the spouses, say Janelle, had just had enough, she could file a partition action. The lawsuit forces the sale or dissolution of the property. And that's where the scenario goes wild. Surveyors, engineers, and geologists would be called in to divide up the land into discrete parcels, each with its own utilities, access, and appraised value. Lawyers would fight forever about how much more valuable the view lot, the lot with trees, or the flat build-out lot was. The cost would be out of sight, with lawyers' fees alone draining hundreds of thousands of dollars from it. By the time they were done with it, the equity in the property would be gone. Yes, they can all go their separate ways with their share of property, but that share would be a fraction of what it was worth before the war. It's the choice of scorched earth, a lose-lose where nobody really wins. And finally, the tedious, most likely scenario, the forced sale. Judges dislike messy family squabbles, and Coyote Pass is messy to the nth degree. A judge can simply say, enough, and place the property on the open market for sale. The dream of the family compound would be finished, replaced by cold, hard cash. And that cash would flow through what is called a waterfall. The bank gets paid first in full. That removes the HELOC, Cody and Robyn's leverage power over all of these people, tout court. Then any other mortgagees still owed get paid off. Then there are closing costs and legal fees. Then, whatever is left trickles down to the partners. And that's where the last struggle would be. Do they divide it evenly, or is it divided based on individual investment? Does Christine lose out since she bailed early? Does Janelle's RV living qualify as additional investment? Everything would be negotiated, and no one would end up semi-happy. For years, these had been the only three viable ways out, each appalling in some fashion. Cody and Robyn's debt fortress was impenetrable. They held the trump card, they were in control, and the others were groping around in the dark. Then, a stunning twist transformed the entire narrative. A breathtaking development turned everything on its head at the close of 2023, a deed of release. In other words, that's the official version that the banks provide when a loan is paid off in full. The massive HELOC, the same one Cody and Robyn utilized as a hammer to keep the others in line, was gone. The house was suddenly free and clear for the first time in years. The question is how? Where did a couple of $100,000s suddenly materialize? The answer is as lovely as it is shocking. The tales go that Janelle and Christine, emboldened by their own success since leaving Cody, paid the debt off themselves from their own funds. On the surface, this seems like a nice dose of redemption, the family, though broken, coming together to save the land. But read on, and a very different story unfolds. This was not an act of goodwill. It was checkmate. Think about it. Why would Cody and Robyn, holding all the power due to the debt, simply allow all the others to pay it off now? Only one possibility makes any sense: pressure. Our suspicion. Janelle and Christine finally did what they ought to have done years earlier, hired a lawyer. A hard-nosed real estate attorney who had written them a straightforward, ominous letter: bring a partition action, and this house is a financial bloodbath. They all lose, and the lawyers are the only winners. Threatened by that bomb, Cody and Robyn's castle crumbled into a prison. They were in no shape to turn down the offer. And the deal was a masterstroke. The money was invested, the encumbrance was removed, and in so doing destroyed the very foundation of Cody and Robyn's power. By clearing title, they delivered the clean sale they had not been able to secure for years. It did not have anything to do with saving the property. It had everything to do with regaining their power. One final, definitive move that flipped the entire game board around. So where are we? The story of Coyote Pass was never a story of constructing houses. It was a game of chess played over decades with deeds, loans, and courtroom machinations. Cody and Robyn might have made the same moves, but ultimately Janelle and Christine made the one that no one anticipated. For the first time in years, the land is free, unencumbered, and ready for its final chapter. The sale is no longer potential, it's a fact. The question now is a matter of how the spoils are to be divided. The television show gave us tears, promises, and emotional fireworks. But the documents tell us something else. They tell us of a war of leverage and betrayal, strategized to the very end, concluded with a dizzying reversal of fortunes. The verdict is yours now. Was it Cody and Robyn's long game finally destroyed by the women whom they had underestimated? Was it simply chaos, desperation, and fate that got mixed up at the last possible moment? Deliver your verdict in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And if you haven't yet subscribed to stay current on stories like this, be sure to do so. Because in real estate and reality television, the most shocking plot twist revelations are always hidden in the documents.